The title of it, I think, is Artificial Intelligence Development for Autonomous Agricultural Applications. Um, and essentially, the project goals are to develop higher level automation in agriculture. There's, an existing amount of automation. There's auto steer and all sorts of automation when it comes to task application and spraying controls. Um, but really want to try and abstract um, the automation that is still being performed by the human in the cab and see to what level we can kind of push that. And so the project entails is kind of like some of the subcomponents, multi-machine operations, which is basically, you know, taking the paradigm of one user controlling one machine and allowing them to control multiple machines and what that behavior could look like. And then also uh, another aspect of the project is like, what would that human machine interface look like? Because you're removing the operator from the perspective of the cab where they're used to looking through that window and seeing what they see from there, and you're putting them in a paradigm where they could potentially see any number of machines, and perhaps they're still in one cab of one machine, but you have to like layer all the other dimensions of every other machine, and that requires like an incredible amount of forethought in order to kind of narrow all that data in a meaningful way to them so that they can still make decisions based off it and also understand it in an intuitive way. It's really hard to like, pinpoint where did this start? What is the origin of it? Like it really does go back as far as agriculture. It's like the the problem is like how do we more efficiently create food while sweating less, And so as far as Doc goes, yeah, there's or the OmniPower platform, I guess it's been branded as now. That founding story, it's kind of it's matured from that origin, and maybe Marco can speak more towards that. But I think like the origin of automation and solving those kinds of challenges in agriculture is like since the beginning of time.
Well, you accurately mentioned that you're kind of developing this new skill set or this, skill that the end user is going to have to be able to operate this equipment. It also takes a very specific skill set to develop those technologies. Individuals such as Josh and his team members that are working on the engineering side, and that's I don't want to say a brand new field, but that field is still emerging. So trying to attract and retain that talent to help continue to build out these technologies has been one of the challenges that we've been faced with. But we're fortunate to have a lot of support from organizations such as CAAIN, from local federal governments to help promote those jobs and keep them in Canada and attract them to our organization. So that's definitely one of the challenges that ironically we've been able to use to empathize with a lot of our end users.
One of the original, I guess, perceptions that I had with the problem of automation in agriculture is like, well, the autonomous car industry is just like they're nailing it, and they're like, they've been working at this for several years now, and they're handling all these dynamic environments like incredibly well using advancements in, uh, artificial intelligence and neural network models, and there's just like a plethora of open source technology even that you can leverage, to help you as a business solve this problem. And so, my original perception was, well, this should be pretty easy. We should be able to just like move the tractor around the field and get the job done. But the complexity in agriculture is kind of a different one than with autonomous vehicles, because autonomous vehicles, they're really just concerned about transporting something from point A to point B. Whereas with farming, the problem is really you have to apply the a perfect amount of product while making as few movements as possible to minimize your losses while still covering every square inch of your field, which is a pretty massive optimization problem because it has to scale across all sorts of different applications as well. It's not just, applying seed, it's applying fertilizer and it's applying all sorts of other things. and it includes harvesting and all sorts of field maintenance type applications. And so it's a very complex behavior to automate because it's not just a transportation problem. And so that's like the root of the challenges in agriculture when it comes to autonomy is like how do you solve that massive optimization problem?
One of the ways that we've been able to overcome some of those initial adoption challenges is to actually just get the equipment in front of people and show them that the underlying technology is not so completely different from what you're used to on the farm today. You're familiar with the way your GPS systems work, with the way that the tractor or the power unit interacts with your implement. A lot of that's the same. It's just been adjusted to fit in kind of a different physical form in this particular instance. But a lot of the underlying technologies are similar and have just been developed on the back end from folks like Josh on the research team and other engineers within our organization. The keen
Yeah.
involvement for us is necessary because by definition it's a network. So for some of those challenges that we're looking to solve and some of the solutions that we're hoping to bring to market and bring to industry, there's a lot of instances where we would in most cases work on those internally ourselves as Raven, as Dot, and now as CNH. What the network does is it kind of promotes that expansion of the problem and that problem solving team outside of our organization to post-secondary institutions, other organizations that are working on supplementary or complementary products that could be used in tandem to address some of the same issues. So I think that without that network promoting all of those things, a lot of that would get missed, or it wouldn't be the primary focus of what we're trying to do with this particular project. And then on the other side, the funding component of it, which is obviously a huge component, there's certain resources that we wouldn't be able to assign to this project as an organization. There's a finite number of resources that you can commit to a particular project, commit to solving a problem, and that will only take you so far, or it'll take you longer to get to a desired destination. And with a lot of these programs, what they help do is essentially stimulate that growth or stimulate that progress through being able to recruit more resources, whether it's on the software development side or on the service and support side, working with our validation partners, things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do, at least within reason as an organization ourselves.
Farmers will really drive what it looks like in the future. So that for me, it's kind of hard to really say because like I can look at like a research paper or like a certain domain of knowledge and say like, oh, this would be a pretty cool application. But the farmer's really the one that at the end of the day they're not really easily fooled by like just technology and gadgets. I mean, there's always a good group of farmers that's willing to try the newest thing, which is necessary in any market. But at the end of the day, like they know what's going to work for them, and so they're really going to drive what the future looks like. And I think Marco nailed it when he said like it's not just about like having like a ton of like spider bots working together on a field, like some sort of like uh, Terminator type farming, but it's like, how do we really bring all of the available data together in a meaningful way to the user? And like being able to do that successfully is really going to be like the thing that I guess defines that future.
We just kind of continue to appreciate the support that we get from CAAIN. It's prompted us to, like I said, look at different avenues to working on these projects with other organizations and post-secondary institutions that perhaps we might not have had we chosen to take on this initiative ourselves. Um, no, I think that the entire idea of the network and working with other organizations have been taking a look at some of the other projects that have been funded or supported through CAIN, and all kind of falling within that same mandate that the organization has. It. I think you guys are hitting the nail on the head by bringing this, across Canada and trying to solve a much broader issue than any one company could do on its own.
Having the support of Kane is really it also helps us to understand that like this isn't just some like localized challenge that only we're trying to solve. Like it's part of a bigger problem, and there's a lot of different players obviously involved in that. And so yeah, having Kane support has allowed us, like Marco said, do things like collaborate with the universities and do things that we hadn't really, ever thought of, and to know that like that we're solving a problem that's, an important problem to solve, because obviously it's caught the attention of CAAIN and the government, and so that has a lot of weight, when I think about it.